Hello and welcome to our new moon forecast, working with the runes. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham, and today we are working with the new moon starting on the 21st of October, and it is a new moon in Wunjo, which is the rune of joy. I've been doing some further deep dive sessions into the runes that are particularly powerful for us through the course of this cycle, so that what we can do on this session is we can do more of an overview of the planetary movements that I'm maybe not covering so much in the deep dive sessions, and give you a sense of where there are going to be challenges in the month and how we can work to address them, and in particular how can we work with our magic, with our spiritual practices and with our magical practices to help to make this a fulfilling, empowering month for ourselves as individuals, where we get to do what it is that we want to do, and we get to ride the tides, which is what I'm sort of thinking of as this month being. There are tides of light and dark that are going to be coming through the course of this cycle. So the days are growing much shorter here in the northern hemisphere, but they're also growing much longer in the southern hemisphere. And so it is this time of change. And the runes that we're working with are runes, some of which are holding a real energy of light and fire and flame, and some of which are holding an energy of darkness and stillness and ice and water as well. So I'd like you to imagine for a moment, at the times before, we didn't have electric lights, we didn't have matches, you had to light your own fire using one of the methods. Maybe you were doing your stone to sort of strike a spark, maybe you were rubbing your sticks together, or you had the bow that you were using. But whatever the case was, if you were looking to create flame, you had to put effort in, and you couldn't get distracted. You couldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to go off and do something else. I'm going to scroll on my social media for a little bit because I'm feeling a bit tired. You had to keep going, and you had to keep focused. And this isn't so much about, I don't want to suggest to you, you have to keep going and you can't rest and you can't do anything, but it is very much a month where distraction can really easily lead us either into a space where we feeling desperate, and we're sort of trying to light our need fire with the Nauthiz rune, which is very, very powerful rune at this point in time, or we can feel overwhelmed by the darkness that is around us, by the noise and the loudness. And like the energy of despair has come up as a word quite frequently for people, certainly in my communities that I'm within recently. And it is there, and it's a risk, and it's one that this month, we could see it as this month is bringing more, or we could see it as this month is providing us with prompts and support for that focus. And that's the way that I would like to look at it, is that rather than us feeling like we are free flowing on a current that we have no control over, that actually that current is saying, and what are you going to do next? And how are you going to step into this? And what do you need to do in order to keep going with the fire and keep going with creating that fire for you? So we're going to be exploring that today, and exploring the idea of ourselves as change makers, when we can step into power and when we can light the need fire, and invoke change ourselves, and when change happens to us with the dominant Hagalaz rune that's coming through. So what I want to share with you is, Sunna Star Wheel members will be very familiar with this, but I thought actually, it's always useful if you're a member of Sunna Star Wheel, but like, I just want to know where everything is, or if you're not on Sunna Star Wheel and you're thinking, well, how does it actually work? Is members of Sunna Star Wheel see, oh, I've gone too far into the page. Hold on for a second. Here we go. So they see your year ahead page in Sunna Star Wheel. In fact, when they come in to their membership, they just come in at the top here, and there's me from the last lunar month. So there'll be a new one coming up for there. Then they go into the open their month by month guide. And that then takes them to this page, which takes you to each of the new moons. So we're on the new moon in October here. So you can see it's got the new moon in Wunjo. If you click on that, it will take you to the oracle for that particular moon. So this video really just gives you an overview of what's going to be happening. And there's a lot more under each of the planetary movements, so that you can take it as deep as you want. And you might say, actually, I want to work with the energy of Hagalaz, which is going to be very strong during the course of this month. And you can see the energy of Nauthiz coming through very much too. So North is the rune after Hagalaz. So, for example, Odin's chariot and Tyr's chariot, they've been in Hagalaz and they're moving into North quite early on. So we've been in an energy of change and disruption. And that will continue because you can see, for example, that Sunna's chariot moves into Hagalaz during the course of this month. But we're also getting into a place of empowerment with the Nauthiz rune. So Hagalaz is the hailstone. It is change that feels like it's happening to us. It is often a divine pattern seeking to reset itself. So if Hagalaz sees that there's something wrong in the world, whether it's like a plant that is weak or diseased in some way, and then the hail comes and destroys that plant, but it's already released its seeds, so new things will grow, or whether it's something like bigger on a world scale, where a world order, for example, might not be doing very well, and it will seek to change that. But that process of change can feel incredibly uncomfortable and difficult for us. But after Hagalaz, we have the Nauthiz rune. And the Nauthiz rune is the rune of the flame, that sense of us having to put effort in order to light the need fire, in order to have that kindling energy coming through. So that's very strong for us. And we have, as I've said, sort of Tyr's chariot and Odin's chariot, they're both in this Nauthiz energy. So it's a really powerful time. We've also got through the course of the month as we're in Odin's hall, we're in Gladsheim. So Odin's energy is particularly potent, very much in the spirit of the leader of the wild hunt. It's a disruptor energy. It is a walking with the ancestors energy as well that Odin is holding for us, and is very, very strong and powerful. Tyr, the energy of the warrior self. And this is the spiritual warrior self, lighting the need fire, moving out of that space of I'm feeling the disruption and I'm trying to battle against it, into the need fire of saying, actually, you know what? I do have the magical tools that are available to me to call the light back, to light the need fire and say, this is what I need. It's a great time for wish making. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that. But we've also got some other energies that are interspersed through this, which are important and can help us to weather the storm and to sometimes have a little bit of respite from the continual lighting the need fire. So we've got Frigg is moving. She's still a little bit slower. She's catching up with Odin at the moment. So she is in Gibo at the very beginning of the month, in that rune of sort of gift giving and exchange. And then she moves into Wunjo, that place of joy and family and kin. So when we're lighting the need fire, it's worthwhile remembering that while we can see that there are events external to us that might be incredibly challenging, and events that are happening outside of our four walls, Frigg is also saying, don't forget that there is also a need fire at your own hearth. So a time for lighting candles, for doing candle magics in particular, are really, really powerful at this time. So really sort of voice out into the world, this is what I need. It's a time of prayer in many ways. If you think of prayer as being a spell, and then either lighting a flame. If you're like me, I feel really, really lucky that I've got a little hearth fire here, but you can absolutely kind of light a candle as well. Even if you have one of those like battery operated candles that you turn on and these sort of it's that invocation of the light that's important through this period of time. And it's saying that this is a really potent time for our magics, and for us to say, okay, this is what's wrong, but I am not going to focus on what is wrong. I'm going to focus on what needs to be right. I want to be part of the solution. That's the energy that we're looking for. That's where the need fire comes from. My energy has to be focused on kindling this need fire, doing what I can, what's in my control. And yes, knowing that there are things that are outside there in the world, but not getting pulled into that storm of things that we can't control and the energy of despair that's all the way around us. This is a countering to the energy of despair that we're looking at. So we've got Frigg's chariot to support us. We've got a beautiful full moon in Laguz, which has got that water energy, that opportunity energy, and it is the energy of the gateways between the worlds, very much honoring that within Sunna's star wheel, that we're working with a story from the mystic self, which is from Hela, goddess of the underworld, and about her origins and birthing story, sort of remaining resonant with that energy of Hagalaz and that disruptor energy and change energy, but it's also that energy of hope and possibility and taking on the role that's been given to you in many ways. So that story is there for our full moon in Laguz. So we've got some Wunjo energy available to us. We've got some Laguz energy available to us. We've got our bigger planetary energies, which I'm not going to cover on today because I have covered them quite a lot over the previous sessions. Yeah, I suppose simply that energy of the seed and that energy of rebirthing remains at the cosmic level. That's still there, even if at a world level, it can feel like we're in the phase of destruction and despair. The bigger energy is the energy of rebirthing and new possibilities and a new paradigm being born into the world, is what the outer planets are holding for us. But the inner planets are holding that energy of what needs to shift within the world at the moment. So I think we'll leave that there for today. And the only other thing to mention probably is that Tyr's chariot moves out of Nauthiz and is the first planet to then move into Isa, which is the rune of ice and stillness. So there will come a period of rest, I was going to say rebirthing, but it's not quite rebirthing. It's stillness, a place of stillness and waiting. That will come, but it's very much towards the end of the cycle. So this is here, obviously, for everyone who's on Sunna Star, but you can see the planetary movements. If you've got any questions about any of these, do let me know. Put something in the chat. If I haven't covered something and you weren't interested, let me know what questions you've got. Actually, the only other thing that I will mention is we'll come back to Odin in retrograde, but I'm going to mention Thor's chariot in retrograde. So Thor doesn't move into a different rune this cycle, but he does go into retrograde. And that means that if you are whispering any wishes for magics and possibilities relating particularly to your work in the world, so your career, your vocation, your service, your acts of service into the world, and if you want to make any changes in that area, do them before the 11th of November, because come the 11th of November, Thor is going to go into a time of rest and a celebration. Very lovely and beautiful for the festive season coming up, but not so good if we wanted to be making career changes. So anything that you want to do around vocation, do that before the 11th of November. Whisper your wishes into the flame. You can absolutely do that. Thor is still available and listening, but he's going to go into retreat until the 18th of March. So this is, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. Anything that you want and desire, say it now, because we're going to move into harvest season with Thor very soon. I'm going to talk to you through the opportunities that you have to go a bit deeper with some of these runes. And we're going to look at Nauthiz a bit more. So I am doing in the half space sessions each week, looking at the runes that are particularly powerful and potent and looking at them through the lens of the different parts of the magical self. So we did for the new moon. The next session we'll be doing that disruptor energy and what the Hagalaz rune can teach us about the disruptor energy. And we're going to be looking at that with our healer selves. It's a real opportunity to work with some of the runes that we can find a bit tricky and be like, oh, Hagalaz, oh. And obviously the healer, we might think of that as being a very benevolent, like nurturing, loving force, and actually to look at Hagalaz through that lens and how we can work with it for healing. We're going to have a session on Lagus, working with the magician self. So magics with Lagus through the course of the full moon. And then we'll be finishing up this cycle looking at the Nauthiz rune, but through the lens of the mystic, through the lens of what's possible, and like that sort of energy of wishing and journeying with the Nauthiz rune to see what's possible for us with the mystic self. So there are going to be more opportunities through the course of the month to dive deeper into the energies that are available to us through the sun and the moon, but also through Frigg and Odin, because Frigg's chariot and Odin's chariot always follow the course of the sun. So their energies are very resonant with that. Obviously, Tyr is also resonating very strongly with the Nauthiz rune too. So that final mystic session will sort of draw in some of that energy of Tyr as well. But the overall theme that we have through the course of this cycle is a sort of roller coaster of dark and light. And this is internally and externally. So there are going to be events that feel like they're outside of our control with the Hagalaz rune. And we might feel these waves of energy coming over us, this sense of disruption, of despair, of darkness, being tempered with other times when it feels like possibility and hope and renewal. And that can feel really disorienting. Being able to move between these energies of Hagalaz, of the hail seed, and Nauthiz, of like the lighting the flame, is important for that, to recognize that we're cycling really rapidly. Some people have described it as almost like a roller coaster energy. So we've got an external roller coaster energy taking place, but we've also got an internal roller coaster energy taking place. And this is because we have Odin's chariot and Tyr's chariot resonating with those energies as well. They're drawing us into this place of the need fire burning inside and teaching us of the path that we want to follow. So the Hagalaz rune teaches us to let go of the things that aren't ours to worry about or be concerned about. But it also brings to the fore things like unresolved emotions. And if our bodies aren't in the great space, it will sort of say, right, you're going to go into rest now, whether you want to or not. So illnesses can occur during this period of time as well, because they're bringing to the surface stuff that needs to be shed in order for us to move through that period of Nauthiz where we can light our own need fire and say, this is what I want to bring into the world. So this is why I think having this context sort of know, okay, there is my energy and the external energy are both experiencing the same sort of light, dark flow, but they might not be doing it at the same time. And that's really annoying. Just like, I'd rather be in the period where I feel a bit like, so I'm a bit despairing and it's feeling really gloomy and that's what's happening outside. Or now I'm feeling that sense of hope and possibility and I'm feeling energized, but it's not always congruent. So that is why that focus on your inner state and what you can control is so important, because otherwise these two forces are going to be disrupting each other and it can be really, really challenging for us to move through. So fire magics are a go-to place. Whatever hemisphere you're in, whatever weather is happening for you outside, fire magics are a great go-to place. Really use that Nauthiz energy. As I've said, like light your hearth fire, light your candle, all of these things, incredibly important. If you're out at night, do a bit of stargazing, looking for the light where that is too. One of the things that you can do that will also be helpful for you at this time, now I've mentioned that our inner energies and the external energies might not be the same. So you might find that your body clock disrupts quite a lot during this period of time. And it's sort of allowing that to happen, at least for this lunar cycle, to sort of say, okay, I might need to sleep during the day. And that's not necessarily something that I want to be doing all of the time, because I don't want to then be like awake at night through all of these periods of time. But it's giving yourself that grace to say, actually, during this time, it's going to be really, really hard for me to stay in a steady, consistent rhythm. So instead of focusing on, I need to go to bed by this time, focus in on, I need to make sure that I get enough rest. And there is a difference. I don't know if you can feel that sort of subtle difference of saying, if I need rest, I'm going to grab it wherever I can get it. It's also things like meal times. Instead of sort of saying, I must eat my food at this time, it's saying, I must nourish my body when it needs to be nourished. So it's almost allowing that disruptive energy to come through in the sense of your own internal body clock and system, and saying, what can I learn through this period of time about what my body needs, what my inner rhythms want me to do, and actually saying, as there's going to be disruption anyway, I would rather use it and say, what can this teach me about my needs with the Nauthiz rune, which is all about the need fire and our needs. What is necessary for me? What do I need in order to keep functioning? And so that I can build new rhythmic cycles for myself when that time comes, which will come much more once we move into the period of Yera. So Hagalaz, Nauthiz, and Isa, the hail, the need fire, the ice, all present their own forms of disruption to us, their own disruptive energies. They're all slightly different, and they're like a little cycle, like a little rite of passage that we go through every single year. And they do offer us wisdom, even when it feels as if, oh, I'm totally out of kilter and I'm not being disciplined. It's almost sort of saying a new discipline is going to be required in the coming year, in the new phase, in the rebirthing year. And this is your opportunity to let go of those old cycles and those old ways of being, to make space for that. So it's giving yourself that permission and focusing instead on the need, rather than saying, I always do the laundry on this day or at this time. It's like, how much laundry actually is there? And when does it need to be done by? All of those types of things are really important. When you've got your heating on, if you've got it on a timer, is it actually working right? I sometimes think it was like micro magics in the Awakened Circle when we're doing our circle, which I love on every day. Magics this week, delicious, gorgeous. And that's what we were looking at. We're looking at what are the micro magics that are going to mean that we emerge from this more aligned, more attuned, more in rhythm with our own needs, recognizing that some of the ways that we operate might not be what we need moving forward. So use this time of disruption recognizing that change is going to occur externally that you can't control, but you might be able to harness and use this time for invoking the changes that you want to see. Lighting your own need fire, lighting a candle and saying, this is what I'm desiring, either in the short term, it could be in the long term. I see very much for me the two halves of the year, let's say, as being sort of intertwined together. It's not we don't get to New Year's Eve and one year goes by, I'm done now, thanks, and the other one sort of arrives. They're weaving into each other. The old year is slowly shedding its leaves and dying, and the new year is already, when the leaves shed, those little shoots are already there, ready for the new leaves to grow. So there's a partnership, and we're experiencing where the old year is letting go and making way for the new year. So that's what we can use for our energy to really harness the potential of this lunar cycle. So please do join me in the hearth space. Whenever I can, I will release the videos onto the YouTube channel as well. Sometimes they don't convert very well, but when they are converting nicely and they work well, then I will put them on the YouTube channel too. But the hearth space is where they come out first. So please join me over there. And just remember, you have your resources available to you. I've got my seer retreat coming up as well in November if you want to bring in your seer self even more fully. And the other thing that I should say is that I have already had a lot of inquiries from people about Awaken to the Runes 2026. And so we are looking to open the doors for Awaken 2026 within the next few weeks. And at this point, when people are getting in touch with me and they're saying, I want to do Awaken, what else is available for me to get myself ready for that, I'm able to create bespoke packages just for you, so that we can say, right, how do we get you ready so that you're ready for a really deep initiatory experience with the runes for a whole year. There's lots that we can do with that. So there are real opportunities now. I've already created a few lovely individual packages for people who are wanting to take a journey deep into their magic at the moment. So if you are feeling that need fire burning, just get in touch, drop me a message, and we'll get together and see what we can do together. Let me know what you're planning to do for this lunar cycle, what is speaking to you in terms of disruptor energies, taking control, and what wishes are burning inside your heart that you want to give a little bit of magic to.